Hi, everybody. It's Sarah, and this is an episode I'm calling Damaged Goods. And it's really about when we fall in love with potential, with what we see someone could be, and we wish that person could be their best self, and we imagine them being their best self. We met that best self, and we're like, oh, I can bring this out of you. I can help you fulfill that. I can see all of this greatness in you, and I'm going to bring it out. And this episode is inspired by so many clients, so many people, and myself. I mean, I've been that person. I think a lot of people fall in love with a person that could be, and we hold on despite their bad behavior, and we wait for that person to show up again. And we will, on a chemical level, be so attached to them, so in love with that potential. And often that means you are always waiting for it to be good again. You might go through months or years of bad treatment when the other person is not capable of being a mutually beneficial partner. Maybe that means they're not kind, they're not loving, they're not receptive, they're not present. They're just not reciprocating in a healthy relationship. And then you'll get that glimmer or the moment of them coming back, and you're like, oh, they're there, they're still there. And that can be enraging, disappointing, devastating. It can make you feel hopeless. And yet, you're like, well, what do I do though? I love this person. I can't not be with this person. And, that might be something that they're not even intentionally doing to hurt you. It could be that person's just not capable, like they're an addict of some sort, or they're just down on their luck. They're going through really hard times themselves, so they're just not consistent or present, and they're not the person that you fell for. And that is what I want to focus on in this episode is how to move forward knowing all of that. And what I'm hopefully going to do with this episode is kind of demystify what is happening and why it is happening, and hopefully give you a little bit more material to move forward based off of. And because it'll be like a kind of confusing situation, it'll feel like I hate this, I don't like this, but how do I solve it? I don't know how to solve it. So with that, there are three parts: the what, the why, and the how, the tools. Part one, the what. Falling for people who are in progress versus solved. And that is something we often have a track record of doing. And so if you find that your type is someone who has great potential, they're magical, they're wonderful, they're so charming, they're so attractive, they have so much that is great about them, and yet, they're not there yet. They have so many dreams, they have so many things they want to do with you, but they're not there yet. They're not demonstrating it with their actions yet. And yet you have connected so strongly to that person on a chemical level, but the person just falls short, doesn't deliver, your needs are not met. And I'm guessing the person probably has bad boundaries. They don't show up for you. They display bad behavior. Maybe they make a lot of promises they don't keep. They might say things, all the things you want to hear, the grand things like I want you to meet my parents. I've never felt this way before. You're so amazing. All of these amazing things that make you feel so good. Or maybe it's that this person is so incredibly talented and hilarious, or whatever it is, that you see so much promise in them if they could only just get their shit together. And they just lack all of these like adult skills, for example. Long story short, you adore them for these things, they adore you, but there are all these practical facts that are just working against the relationship. Part two, the why. I think a lot of people who are um, not interested or capable of being in healthy, mutually rewarding long-term relationships, but they want to keep you in their life. A lot of the time, that is a tactic people like that use, which is often referred to as love bombing. I see that on the internet a lot. It's basically a person who says all the things, portrays all of the ideals to you based on what you want, what they think you'll want, and creates that vision, that dream. Like, and they create it so emotionally, so powerfully, and they portray this amazing thing to keep you attached and to make you attached, in part because they know that they're damaged goods. And by that I mean like that there are things that are not solved yet, that they're not functioning, that they're not like um they're not ready to go. They're not ready to be all in. They're not ready to be the person that is a mutually giving partner. And so people like often portray all the dreams, all the things in a perfect relationship. And then as soon as you start to complain, you start to distance, you start to ask for your needs met, that is when that person will put it all on you. And so you might experience somebody being very offensive, being criticizing you. It's a lot of gaslighting, making you feel like you're crazy for having asked these things. How could you? So it's you kind of get lost because things don't really make sense. They don't add up. You're like, if they meant all these things, why are they not making these plans with me? If they really wanted to build a life with me, why are they not answering the phone for a week? All of those types of things. It's hard to not feel attached to a person that has made you feel so connected and so special and so swept off your feet. And oftentimes, if this is the first time you've been in a relationship like this, you will be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they really want all of these things with me, and like how exciting that they want all these things with me. And it oftentimes makes us get farther in our dreams than we would if we had not met this person, because they've thrown it all out and they've really like professed all of these things. So it's like you might feel like, wow, maybe I do want to get married. Maybe I do want to have children. Maybe I am capable of all the things that other people want, and I never thought I did, but now I do. It's like it for someone to make you feel that special is it's like intoxicating and it's overwhelming and it's addictive. So it's like, of course, you would want to sustain this, even at the cost of your values or your needs. So I think that if you are asking yourself, if this has happened to you and you're asking yourself, like, well, does that mean that they don't mean it? Does that mean they're lying? Where's the truth? Don't they want all these things? So are they not feeling these things? My short answer for that would be it's different for them. It's not the same as the way you feel because it's like a different being, a different type of person. And it's not that they don't want all these things. It's just they're getting off on the power and the feeling of enchanting and engaging you. It's not the same. They don't feel the same things. So why would you do this? Why would you be in a relationship where you're not getting your needs met and you're holding out for someone's potential versus falling in love with who they are right now in their actions? Um, by the way, that was me. I was a person that did the exact same thing, and I was like, oh, but they have all these great assets. They also really, really like me. Um, but they're working on themselves. Eventually they'll get there and they're trying really hard. And so it kind of like was like, I'm like, I'm not perfect. I'm just going to tolerate all of this because this is where they're headed. So why do we do things like that? A lot of common ones is that we feel for the first time really strongly connected to someone and we feel seen and we feel like that's oftentimes is like a new feeling. And it's really hard to let go of a craving to feel that again, like to feel safe and close and so chemically bonded. Like it's such a good positive feeling that we're like, I just want it one more time. I just want to feel that one more time. How do I get back to that? Just one more time. The other part of the equation is I think a big part of it is like we like the feeling of safety that comes with having somebody that's in progress. It's like all of a sudden our flaws, our imperfections don't feel so raw or scary to us because we're like, oh, but they have all these problems. Like I'm great, it makes us feel good about ourselves and confident in ourselves in a different kind of way. And um it's shitty to say this, but like we never want to bond based on our deficits. We never want to bond or connect to someone based on what we want to overcome or a shared weakness. We want to bond based on shared success and strength and awesomeness and health. So the fact that we're attracted to them because we don't feel so bad about ourselves is it feels safe and it feels comforting, but it's not necessarily the healthiest way to choose a partner. And some part of us in this equation of feeling like better than somebody or like we have a project, it helps us also take relief off of our own issues and things that we're working on or worried about in ourselves. So it's like we just get to focus on somebody else and all the things that they have in their life and fix those things for them. And we feel really good about ourselves because of that. We feel capable, we feel successful, we feel wanted, we feel needed. It's like a very comforting feeling. And it also occupies us so we don't feel lonely or all of those lack feelings get a little bit soothed. Because it's like when someone needs you and you feel like useful and like you got your shit together and you're capable, you're like, I'm a great package. I am really like, yeah, I'm better than this person. It's like a feeling of like confidence that you get. It's also really helpful when somebody's in progress for people who are very sensitive. Like if you're a sensitive person, if you're dating somebody who is in progress and not solved, it's far away. There's nothing that's so confrontational and immediate as somebody that is emotionally healthy and ready and present. Like as soon as somebody you meet is like that, they're like they've got their shit together, super successful, super emotionally healthy, and they're ready to be in a relationship. That is so intense and confrontational to a sensitive, insecure, vulnerable person. It feels like, oh God, you can see all of my warts and fears and all of these things. It like feels kind of scary. It's a little overwhelming. So I think there's something attractive to very sensitive people about people who are far away. The possibilities of the relationship being fully at you, in you, all on the level is like almost a benefit, because it just doesn't trigger all of that intensity. And the other main reason, if you choose relationships like this, is what I call having a reduced ouch meter. Like, what is an ouch meter? I think of that as like our innate alarm bells that go off when someone is not treating us well or is crossing boundaries, is not demonstrating they have good values or respect our values. All of the things that should immediately send off like alarms in your body as a kid, like, oh, this person's not safe. This person is dangerous. This person is giving me funny, weird feelings in my belly. Those like are our inner alarms. And like if you are a person who grew up swallowing shit or like tolerating intense anxiety and you had to be like a tiny adult, your ouch meter is just dampened. Like it doesn't go off when it should because you just tolerated feelings of terror, feelings of anxiety, feelings of longing, whatever they were, all of those unmet needs for a chronic period of time. It makes us just get used to having those be okay. We tolerated it. We forced ourselves to tolerate it for so long that we just, now our body doesn't have a sensitivity to it like it should. And so, because of that reduced ouch meter, when somebody has bad boundaries or is inconsistent and they like don't show up for us when they said they would, we're like, huh, is it me? Should I have done something different? Like when in reality, your body should immediately say like, uh-oh, red flag. I don't fucking like this. This is not respectful and this is not behavior I accept. I am moving on. Like that's what a healthy ouch meter would say. So if you have a reduced ouch meter like myself, and you are a person that has grown up tolerating a lot and doing a lot despite it, the good news is you're high functioning and like it's your gift. You have so many superpowers because of it. And you are a person that could be like a one-man band in life. Like you're likely the overfunctioner in all of your relationships. You likely like do all the things, you fix all the things, you figure out how to solve it, you do all the planning, all of that stuff. but it creates imbalance in your life, in relationships, and it's something that needs to be corrected, especially in the dating process. The dating process is one time when you have to adopt the values of a person who is extremely emotionally healthy because you have to choose right. You have to filter out the people who are not capable of being in a relationship. So, all of that said, what we are looking for is you need balance in your relationship in terms of like what person's giving and what person's receiving, and both people need to give and receive equally. And we also have to um, have healthy boundaries. And anytime that you don't have that balance, it's like it's going to create a problem in the future. Like if you are a person that overfunctions and the other person underfunctions, eventually you explode because you're like, when the fuck are you going to meet my needs? Like, I've been doing all this shit. It's like eventually it just creates a pattern that's not beneficial to the relationship anyway. Um, so if you, if any of that sounds familiar, what I want to focus on in this why is your role in all of this. And I know that a lot of the time there's a motivation behind our choices that is control. We need to have control over the other person. And that is like self-protective instinct. It's old muscle memory. And we feel like if I can just control the situation by overfunctioning, I will be able to predict what love and affection I get. And I can turn that spigot on and turn it off based on how I overfunction. And that makes to us this situation of being in a relationship, which is already so scary, it makes us feel like we have power over it. And we feel like good and worthy and we feel important while we're doing it. And I think that's like an unconscious motivation. It's not necessarily like we walk in and we're like, I met this awesome person that's got a bunch of problems, but I'm going to control the shit out of them and make them be great. Like, I don't think we are thinking that way. It's just some part of us feels so valuable, like we're thriving in that role. And that is because we grew up in that role. And so I want to ask you if you can even answer this. I don't know. Just to ponder, why do I feel a sense of not deserving or not being safe with a person who is fully solved, who has no problems, who is not damaged goods, who is ready and successful? What am I afraid of? What comes up for me when I picture being with that person? They have no issues, they're fully emotionally healthy, and they are thriving and successful and all of the things. Like, what comes up, if anything? Maybe nothing does. Maybe you're like, that's what I've been looking for, and I don't know how I'm choosing wrong. Back to this situation of this damaged goods relationship. The desire to fix someone or complete someone is really coming from that desire for safety. And I think a lot of the time we have an unseen feeling of insecurity and lack. Like it's a deep longing and a deep loneliness. And that feeling of loneliness is in part like nobody knows all the things I know. Nobody knows that I'm broken in all these ways. That's like that lonely whisper inside of us. It's like I want to feel someone that feels like me. I want to be with someone that feels like me, who feels lost like me. And that is I think what causes us to be attracted to people with issues. It's like we feel like we are um complete. We feel like we're matched. And maybe there's some part of you that is so emotionally vulnerable and sensitive and doesn't feel fully solved yet. And that is something to look at. That's the first place I would look. If you're seeing a pattern in your relationship or in the people you're choosing, the first place to look is inward. What is the thing I feel that is finding a solve in these external relationships? Because we all know what a healthy relationship should look like. It's just like sometimes it doesn't feel right for us in this weird way. But a healthy relationship is one person who feels really confident and solved and proud of their self and knows who they are, giving their gifts to a partner. And that partner is also someone who is super proud of who they are, likes their self, and is giving their gifts back to their partner. And when those people are together, they grow beyond their sum. They strengthen one another. They uplift one another. They inspire one another. Relationships are like platforms that boost us up and give us greater strength. And when we choose them based on uh, all of the gifts, we become like superheroes. We become so much stronger. It reinforces all of the gifts we have. Versus when we choose somebody based on a void and based on soothing of a void, we stay in a loop of dependency. We stay on we become kind of preoccupied and depleted by that loop of taking care of the other's voids, if that makes sense. And they kind of the imbalances exacerbate one another. So I would say if you are a person that's falling in love with potential, um, the main thing for you to know is it feels like you're seeing a future version of them that's possible, but in reality, what you're seeing is a projection of what you visualize onto them. And that I just wanted to talk quickly about how projections work because everyone does it. We all do it in healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships. It's basically like the first year and a half of any relationship is you're overlaying onto another person who you imagine them to be based on your all of your life experiences and the way you were brought up and all of the things you know and all the things you believe. Like I might be seeing red where you see green. We don't know. Like we have our own brain that has like learned all the things about the things and what things are good and bad and what are not, what good music is, what is not good music. Like all of those things are like embedded in your mind in such an intricate way. So it's like when you meet somebody, you're like, I'm picturing your type of person onto you. And then you kind of like add info as you get to witness who they are. You change it, it fluctuates as to who that person really is, changes your vision of them. Around a year and a half, a lot of people break up because reality has shown us more of who that person is. And we often are like, oh, but you were supposed to be this other way. And we can't reconcile the difference between those two things. So when you meet somebody and you're like, I see all this potential, they're going to be amazing, know that that is your visualization of who they could be. And it's really about changing your goal to recognize who they really are now. Take in all the objective information about who they actually are now. Our mission is to accept and learn to accept and hold tight to reality as it is presenting itself to us. That is the way we have to guide all of our decision making, not on what someone says, not on what they say they want, not on anything except for objective facts that reveal themselves to us. And I think a lot of the time people avoid accepting and loving the reality of a situation exactly as it's presented because we are so motivated by scarcity. Like we have this feeling of like, but this is the best I'll get. This opportunity might pass and I'll have no other opportunity. I have nothing better on the horizon. So what's the harm? I'm just going to see this through because what else am I doing? And why not? Like, and this is your decision to make, If it's better than nothing and that's what you're deciding based off, so be it. But I will say, when we accept less than behavior, when we are tolerating something that does not align with our values, does not align with our bar for ourselves, for our own treatment, we tell ourselves that we do not deserve that thing. We tell ourselves, I don't deserve my own bar. I don't deserve good treatment. I don't deserve what it is I truly want. We are telling ourselves to have low self-worth. We are practicing living a life of someone who takes the lowest hanging fruit, who does not have a high bar of self-respect. And it's like we're teaching ourselves with our own actions, this is what I deserve, and it's less than. And that really does create and reaffirm low confidence. It's like a routine that you live by that just reaffirms that self-definition. And you might feel like more bound to that person and find you're tolerating worse and worse behavior because of the fact that you've been practicing it for so long. You've been violating your own boundaries for so long that you don't feel justified in asking for better because you've already watched yourself tolerate less than for a long enough time. So, where do we go from here? If you're in this situation, I'm guessing you're like, I hate this. I really don't like being in this relationship. I don't get my needs met. This person doesn't keep their promises. I'm always waiting for something to change, it never does. I want out. I don't know how to get out. I don't like this. I don't know why I keep choosing these relationships, but I do. I don't know how to solve it. I know I don't like it and I'm done. I want to get a good relationship. I want to be with someone that's great. I'm great. I know I'm great. Why do I keep ending up with these people? First things first, we need to have the tools to tolerate being with ourselves, being alone happily with ourselves. This is a big part of the equation. Just being able to look inward and sit with whatever comes up. Maybe that's loneliness, maybe that's sadness, maybe that's longing. That stuff just needs to be sat with and processed often, as within the therapist office, but also just you have to be capable of being by yourself. And if you're not, if you are a person that just feels like your skin is on fire when you're by yourself, there's something you got to process in therapy. There's something you got to get through in therapy. And I think it's a lot of the time, it's not as overwhelming as you think it is. It's usually stuff that just like, it's like stories you have to tell, it's beliefs you have to untangle. It's fears you have to get comfortable with. They just need to become conscious. Instead of right now, they're like driving you unconsciously from within. All of these beliefs have to just be sorted, and someone outside of you has to be able to give you context for why they exist in you and why they're not true sometimes, and why it would be valid that you would think that. It's like we need to give them all adult grounding, and then they don't drive us anymore. So that's the first part of the equation. We need to have tools to sit with pain. Second half of it is soothing, physical soothing. I think a lot of us have untreated PTSD or some version of that. And a big part of what drives us to stay occupied in relationships is there is some intense fear or trigger that we don't have any language for, and we don't know how to get rid of it. And the only thing that seems to get rid of it is being in a relationship. And so oftentimes what that means is we have to start to aggressively take on new self-soothing skills. Yoga is a common one, but there are so many others that just like really get you out of your brain. Exercise is always a really good one. Anything that's changing your physiology, anything that's changing your temperature, I call it zagging. It's getting your brain out of the channel it's in. We have to be able to take over our brain with our bodies, like give control to our body so that we are not controlled by the anxiety and the fear and the pain that is triggered either psychically or somatically. We have to have tools to soothe, to ground, to get out of that. So if you don't have those things currently, that's just a great starting point. How do I give myself self-soothing tools that work for me in any situation? And how do I teach myself to be comfortable and actually love being alone? That can exist for you. It absolutely did not exist for me. And then I had to do a shit ton of work and it did. So it's possible. I BetterHelp, one of our sponsors, welcome you to check that out. BetterHelp, I can't remember the promotion. It might be an ad this week, who knows? But I would say check out BetterHelp for online therapy. Um, and after all of that, we have to examine if you are in a relationship and you don't know what to do about it, like your relationship is not making you feel great, you have to examine whether or not you are happy. I think one thing that relationships do for us often is just abate loneliness and like give us that project. And we can invest in the thing and have someone in our lives and we think, at least I have this. But I'm guessing if you have listened thus far that this is not great. Like that I'm guessing it's a problem and a loop that has been sneaking up on you and it's kind of baffling to you. And if you take a step back and you ask yourself, like, is it worth it to go through all of this pain? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Even if you get to have someone, I think it's like, it's not worth it to go through all of the bullshit. And you can have better, but it has to start with a decision to set your sights on better and like change the search terms, as I call it, to someone who is capable of being in a relationship. And past that, we really have to commit to doing work on ourselves that allows us to confidently ask for better. Like we can do the work on ourselves, but we could also enact the actions of a person who is self-loving and has done the work on themselves, and we still get the same result. So if you take the actions of a person with a high bar, you will find a healthy partner. But that person, when you meet them, it can feel intense in you. It can feel triggering. So with that, here is part three, the how, the tools. But first, a brief word from our sponsors. Okay, first tool, choose right. That's like the number one rule. With all of this dating stuff and like trying to sort through people and really be like overly scrutinizing and setting this high bar and being like really militant about saying no to people who have problems that are just demonstrating that they're not capable of being consistent. It's like it feels like intense and it feels like stressful and not fun, but it's not forever. Like you don't have to be on guard and begging for your needs to be met if you choose the right person. And you're just looking for one person. And if that person is a good person, it gets rid of a lot of these other problems. Like you can let your guard down, you can do a lot of vulnerable work, you can allow yourself to be seen by them, they can help you feel, they can help you grow. Esther Perel has a quote, "The secret to loving connection is timing." And I think that's totally true in when you're in a committed relationship, but I also think it's true in your life. And this belief of there's not enough, I'm getting old, or I have to take what I can get because of XYZ. It's um it's just a part of your brain that is blocking you from asking for the person you want. And if for us to get on the path toward finding a healthy, mutually rewarding relationship, we have to accept that there is a time when that has to happen and it requires both people be on that path. And so I'm like, get on the path to that. If you're not on that path, you're not moving toward that other person. Accept that there's work to be done. All right, next tool, set the search terms. I would say like a lot of the time we have not even really thought about what it is we're looking for in a partner. And we have not even quantified that thing. Part of us feels like we don't deserve to or is nervous to do that. But as long as you set the right search terms, you will find the right person. But you have to make sure you have all the right search terms. Things like trustworthy, accountable, their words match their actions, capable, um, consistent, all of the things that just are baseline requirements for someone being able to function in your life as a partner. And if you find yourself getting resistance to things like these, just know that that's like, notice it. Like, oh, what work do I need to do on myself to feel more confident and seated in health? Like, why am I not identifying with health? What part of me feels broken? Why? Why am I identifying with that as a good thing in my life? And I'm telling you, if you aggressively shop for the right things in somebody and nothing less than those things, it is inevitable that you find that person. It just might take a really long time, but it is inevitable. The other half of this equation is, will that person recognize you as their match when you meet them? And the reason I bring that up is oftentimes we are currently occupied by, I don't know, like a person that is a temporary, painkiller, or a person that we know is not great. And if your energy is clouded by that, your person is being brought down by a sketchy character in your life, that other person is not even going to want to be with you. They'll be like, yikes, that person has bad boundaries. No thanks. So it's like, be the person that deserves the person you want to have in your life. Next tool, enter the void. First of all, do not watch this movie unless you want to dive into an existential crisis and possibly relapse into whatever addiction you formerly suffered. It is an incredible movie visually, but it's so upsetting. But anyway, this tool is about entering the void consciously, meaning being in the space of feeling the feelings that keep you running into relationships, like deliberately inviting ourselves to sit in that and study it and see that it won't kill us. I think a lot of the time it feels terrifying, it feels overwhelming, it feels like, oh my God, I have to run screaming from this feeling, it's going to kill me. And that has tethers to something very old. It's some feeling that we experienced for a long period of time when we were too young to feel it and too young to take care of ourselves and deal with it. So I invite you as an adult, possibly with the help of a therapist, to sit with yourself and hold yourself through this feeling consciously and deliberately. And I think so much of our life is spent unconsciously running from a feeling of emptiness. We're constantly stuffing, filling that void with a sensation, giving ourselves stimuli so we don't have to feel the emptiness. Um, and and if you're constantly running, what happens is we're just we're numbing like through most of our life. I think the feeling of emptiness is less potent and less uncomfortable than our fear tells us it is. I used to have so much dread during the day if I was alone. It would drive me to use, for lack of a better term. And now that I have self-regulation tools, I also have done a lot of therapy. Now I can self-soothe to the point where those feelings have just lost their recurring potency. Like they've just faded away because I treated them when I had them versus running from them. And now that I have that tool, I'm like, oh, fuck, I lived so much of my life based on this unhealthy loop of avoiding pain. And I would say, if that sounds familiar at all, another one to add to the list to work on in therapy. Next tool. Next tool is called Remember the Blessing. I just wanted to call out that a lot of the time we feel really remorseful about like short-lived relationships, or we think like I fucked this up and like this was a waste of life, and oh man, that was only a year, and whatever judgments we have, all of our experiences are blessings, and we move through relationships because they're going to teach us something about ourselves. And it's not about them all lasting forever. Some are meant to be brief and give us just a very specific piece of information of ourselves. And there are always pros and cons to any relationship. Nothing is lost. And know that there will be a different right answer for you at a different time in your life as to what you should do. And I know that oftentimes we get mad at ourselves for not being able to make the right choice, or we think there's something wrong with us for having done something. There's no such thing. It's like everything is in service of us solving some part of ourselves and who we are meant to be. So know that each individual experience has its own blessing in what we learn, but also in like the depth we experience, whatever that happens to be. All right, the next tool, Rear Window. I don't know if you've seen the Hitchcock movie Rear Window, but this is a play on that. The other name for this is the war on words, and getting nonverbal. So Rear Window, the Hitchcock movie, is like all kind of like a big building with lots of big windows, and this man who has a broken leg is just watching all of the people in their windows, and you get a sense of their life story and what's happening just because of what they're doing. You don't hear any of the words they're saying. And I think especially with partners that are like this, where we get confused, we get talked out of our feelings, we get kind of like lost in the content of arguments or of discussions. They're often very silver-tongued and they can manipulate us into thinking we're crazy. One thing I wanted to offer you was this idea of being, I call that the war on words. When you suddenly feel like you're not allowed to talk or say what you want, or that you're going to be wrong for bringing up something you think, if you start to feel that that's a rule, an unspoken rule, of like, I'm not allowed to speak up, I'm not allowed to say what I think, it's a bad sign. You have to be aware of that. And I want you to look at yourself as if you're in a rear window. And you and this person, just look at yourselves from a purely nonverbal perspective. Imagine your conversations are being seen by somebody and they can't hear any of the words. What do you see is happening? One person is submissive, is pleading, is tiptoeing. The other person is getting angry, is gesturing, they're being evasive, they're rolling their eyes, whatever it is. That's one tool I think is helpful, is just to see the truth of what's happening as it's happening. And the other thing I think is really helpful for is see that, just see the actions, not the words. The words don't matter. Just see what the person does, nothing more. What do their actions show you? A stranger is watching this entire relationship play out. What does the situation tell you about each person? What do you know to be true? All right. Next tool is called what they say equals how they feel. This is another great, I would call it decoder ring for relationships. If this person is criticizing you for not doing the right thing, or that person is telling you you're so judgmental, that like you're so needy, whatever it is, like how could you, blah 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 blah, and you're kind of like confused. One thing you can take away from whatever that person projects onto you is how they feel inside. They feel like everyone hates them. They feel like everyone is against them, that people don't love them enough. That reveals their core belief, which is, I am not enough. Nobody loves me. Everyone's against me because I'm a bad person. It's like you can trace the self-definition based on whatever a person's projection onto the outside world is. So where they find darkness, they feel darkness inside. I hope that makes sense. Um, and then next tool for you is a meditation, and it's to help you if you feel guilty. I think a lot of what happens to us when we are in relationships like this is we feel so guilty for having raised our needs or having drawn a boundary. We think, "Oh, but am I asking too much? Did I hurt that other person? They're telling me I'm so mean. I feel awful for abandoning them." Whatever's coming up for you. The meditation is just send love, let the rest go. Visualize and energetically send love and let the rest go. No matter what this person is going through, you know that you mean them no harm. Feel karmically at peace, send them love, and let the rest go. And sometimes we have to really just set a boundary and know that it's going to really be hard for us, and just let that process exist. Know that it is so difficult to start setting boundaries if you've never done it before. All of those feelings will happen. They're part of it. Accept that it's part of it and move through it, holding yourself, and supporting yourself throughout. And know that like this is a hard stage of life to be in. And if you start to dwell on what's not happening and where you wish you were and all the stuff that's wrong and why it's the wrong age, all of that stuff, if you're getting in your own head about it, that part is optional. That self-judgment, judgment of the situation part is self-inflicted pain that is totally unnecessary. That's the part we have to opt out of. As soon as you start to go to that place, you have to tell yourself, how can I enable myself to invest love and positive energy in my being? Like, I have someone in my life who's really focused on a lack of success and where they should be and they're not. And whenever that happens, I say, like, now is the time to double down on the creative acts that only you can do, that only you can inform. And that same thing goes for love. Like when you have a lack of success that you're fixating on, you're really clouding your energy with a feeling of scarcity and desperation and lack. So the first thing to do is just invest in creative and beautiful growth in yourself, whatever that means. What's one way you can and just feel like you're flourishing in yourself? And that is the episode. In closing, I want to thank my latest sponsors and thank you for all of you who support the show. If you have the means, donations really help. If not, totally get it. If you could share it with someone, it could help. That helps me as well. So, in closing, you are an energetic being and you have to keep the energy clean. Like when we accept things into our lives that degrade us or compromise what we deserve, we practice being and feeling not good enough. And it can take us backwards in our development. And if you are feeling angry and frustrated, that is your health speaking. That is your self-protective energy that's saying, I deserve better. I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with this treatment. That is the truth speaking through you. So what do you do? What's next? I would say focus on how you can invest in self-honor, self-respect, keeping your head clear. I think when we are clouded and confused by the words of another person, it's a sign that we need clarity and we need distance. Like, know that you're not crazy. And yes, you deserve the things you are asking for. If you're at all in doubt of your own strength, get a therapist and share what's happening with a friend because it changes everything to have a tether to reality that is not living in your life. I send you so much love and strength and hope, and love yourself enough to not accept the wrong person. So eventually, that person that you deserve gets the pleasure of meeting you. Send you my love. Smile.